So you just received a letter from the IRS, and now you're really worried. So what do you do? Well, today on the Accounting for You podcast, that's exactly what we're going to talk about. Welcome to the Accounting for You podcast, brought to you by the accounting firm of Adkins and Reynolds CPAs. This podcast is designed to provide relevant tax and accounting information to help you and your business succeed. If you enjoy listening in, please like and subscribe to our channel. Now, on to the show. Welcome back to the Accounting for You podcast. I am Chris Reynolds, CPA and partner with Adkins and Reynolds CPAs.
And I am Jay Adkins, CPA and partner with Adkins and Reynolds CPAs.
Well, today we're talking about tax notices and stuff and what happens when you receive a tax letter from the IRS. I can't tell you how many clients I have that call in an absolute panic when they receive an IRS notice. Do you get those?
I get those, and especially I feel bad for the ones who may receive them in the mail when they get home from work on Friday and they don't sleep all weekend. Right. Please don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. So it's important to obviously we've got to deal with it, but I think the first step in dealing with an IRS notice when you get it in the mail is to calm down.
Yes.
Yeah, obviously your pulse goes up, your stress level goes up when you see a letter from the IRS because nothing good comes from the IRS. They're not normally calling or emailing you, or I'm sorry, they will never email you or call you. They're normally not writing a letter to say how much they like you, or it's not a love letter. It's normally something that you or someone has done to make a mistake, and they normally are wanting money, and that's normally the situation of an IRS notice. So the important thing to remember is stop, look, read, and breathe. I cannot impress upon you how important that is. Calm down. Because I would say if you think you're going to jail because you received an IRS letter, they probably wouldn't have sent the letter first. They would have just showed up at your door.
Yeah, we have that all the time. I hear people say, I don't want to go to jail. I'm worried if I do this. That's only for the people that do things that are criminal and do them on purpose. It's not for people who make mistakes.
Yeah, and normally that's after they've sent hundreds of letters and correspondence and you've already met with agents. They're not just going to show up at the door guns a-blazing. So,
right.
So it's just a letter. Let's take the steps to make sure we know what we're talking about here, okay? All right. So key things when you're dealing with an IRS notice. First off, read the letter. See if you can understand what they're talking about, first of all. And it's important to remember, and normally at the top of the letter of an IRS notice, it's going to tell you what tax form and what tax year, because there's obviously different taxes that the IRS deals with. And so it's important to understand what the tax form and tax year they're talking about.
Right.
Yeah. So, and I think the other important thing is to, in keeping yourself calm, tax agencies or the IRS, they do make mistakes.
Yes.
They don't necessarily have all of the information that, maybe you think they should have because, companies may have forgot to file W-2s in the year. They may have erroneous information that was reported to the IRS that they're putting on your tax file, for instance. So it's important to remember that they can make mistakes because, they are human as well. Even though computers do a lot of it, still people are running the computers. So after you understand what the tax form is that they're talking about, what tax period they're talking about, it's important to follow the instructions of the letter because they're going to make certain inquiries and ask you to do certain things.
Right.
So they're going to be looking for maybe you just need to submit more information. Maybe you need to just sign the form because maybe you forgot to sign your tax return. I've seen those, haven't you?
I have, yes.
Yeah, so we're talking about read the letter, understand what they're requesting, and if it's outside of your comfort zone or you don't understand, that's when you obviously are going to reach for outside help.
Right.
But the important thing in that is don't ignore the letter. Because what happens if you ignore IRS letters?
If you ignore the IRS letter, you get more IRS letters, and they progressively get more aggressive and threatening if you don't do anything. So the worst thing you can ever do is ignore it and not do anything at all. That's when it starts to get more serious. And Chris was mentioning the different things that could be in the IRS letter. Maybe it is as simple as, there was no signature. I've seen ones for tax returns that they have just requested a copy of the individual's W-2 to substantiate the withholding, and then they're going to send the refund the client is asking for. So that's a good thing. I've also seen where there's mistakes on tax returns where maybe there wasn't enough estimated tax claimed. Maybe the letter is actually good news and the IRS says that you have credit for more taxes paid in than you actually thought you did.
All right. So it's important though to not ignore the letter,
Right.
because if it's something like that, on a good thing, they don't know what to do with that tax. They don't, or that you've paid in. So it may just sit there.
Yeah, you have to take some sort of action. And again, that's what we're here for. We will help in advising on what to do, but please don't ignore it. Don't shove it under other papers on a desk and leave it there. There's always a time frame that they give you to respond to the notice. Please don't call us 3 months after that deadline. That makes it more difficult.
Right. Because a bury your head in the sand approach will not work when it comes to IRS letters, IRS notices, or even other tax agency notices. They do not tend to go away. They only increase. And also, you've got certain time frame to respond, like Jay's talking about. They may be making estimates of what you owe because you've not submitted proper documents. And if you do not respond to those notices and tell them that they're wrong and here's proof why they're wrong, those estimates that they're doing can become permanent, and there's no way of getting out of it. It becomes law or whatever on your account, and that's what you're going to have to deal with. So
we've seen examples of that before. If for some reason a tax form did not make it to the IRS or to the state, they'll be happy to make a guess, an assumption, and most of the time they guess high in their favor.
Right. So do not ignore the letter. I cannot impress upon you on that. And obviously, so if you've read the letter, you understand it, but it's outside of your comfort zone, or you don't exactly understand what they're talking about, that's when you're going to contact your CPA. And obviously, we have a lot of experience dealing with IRS notices and other tax agency notices, that we can look at the notice, we can understand what they're talking about, and we can formulate the proper response. Maybe it's a request to have penalties abated. Maybe it's just as simple as, no. It's real simple. You just need a copy of your W-2 to be sent in. Or it may be even something larger, like a notice of an audit request, and that's where we can fill in and take on those responsibilities for you, so that you're not having to deal directly with the IRS.
Right. So please don't ignore, don't panic. We're here to help.
We're here to help. So I think that's pretty well how to respond to an IRS notice in a nutshell. So we're talking about calm down. It's probably not that bad overall. It's important to make sure you understand the tax period, the tax form that they're talking about, and it's also important to know that you have a certain time to respond and that you should not ignore the letter. Do you have anything else you want to add to this episode, Jay?
That's very good advice. Please rely on us. We can help through this. As Chris says, we deal with this all the time. And please keep in mind, it may not necessarily be bad news.
That's right. So, all right. Well, I think that's all we got for you today on the Accounting for You podcast. So if you have any questions, be sure to reach out. Thank you for taking time today to listen to our podcast. We appreciate listeners like you and ask that if you enjoy what you hear, please like and subscribe to our channel to ensure you receive the latest episodes as soon as they come out. If you have any questions about the topic we discussed today, or would like more information on becoming a client, please do not hesitate to contact our office by visiting arcpas.com or theaccountingpodcast.com.